You know, there are some questions that humanity has been asking itself basically forever. And maybe the biggest one of all is this: where did we come from? Not our parents or our ancestors, but the very first spark of life itself. Today, we're diving into this incredible cosmic detective story.
I mean, really think about it. This is the ultimate cold case. How does a planet made of just rock and gas somehow give rise to something that can think and feel and ask this very question? It's the one mystery that underpins everything else. So let's start investigating.
Okay, so just like any detective, the first thing you have to do is understand the crime scene. Before you can even think about suspects, you have to establish a timeline and figure out what the setting was like for, well, the single most important event in our planet's history, the moment non-life became life.
And the time scale here, it's just mind-boggling. The universe kicks off. Billions of years go by. Then our Earth finally forms. But look at that gap. There's about 1 billion years between the Earth becoming a planet and the first fossil evidence of life. That billion-year stretch, that's our crime scene. That's the window where the rules of chemistry somehow magically gave birth to biology.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head, right? It perfectly captures the challenge for our scientific detectives. The evidence is there, it's literally locked away in the oldest rocks we can find, but those clues are ancient, they're broken, and they're incredibly hard to read. It's like trying to solve a case where your only witness speaks a language nobody's heard in 3 billion years.
So even with this faint, difficult trail of clues, investigators have managed to develop a few main lines of inquiry. You can think of them as the main suspects, or the leading theories for how life got started. Let's take a look at the lineup. Generally speaking, the possibilities fall into 3 big categories. First up, you've got special creation, the idea that life was put here by a divine intelligence. Then there's the idea of an extraterrestrial origin, the theory that life's building blocks, or maybe even life itself, came from space. And finally, the one we're going to really dig into, spontaneous origin, the hypothesis that life just emerged from the chemicals right here on early Earth.
So, suspect number 1, special creation, is by far the oldest idea, and it's a core belief in most of the world's religions. It suggests that life didn't just happen, but was purposefully created by a supernatural force. Now, from our scientific detective's point of view, this is where we have to pause, because a hypothesis like this can't really be tested in a lab, so it kind of sits outside the direct investigation.
Next up in the lineup is this really cool idea called panspermia. The theory goes that life's essential ingredients, things like amino acids, or maybe even super simple microbes, hitched a ride to a young Earth on asteroids or comets. And while we've definitely found organic molecules on meteorites, which is amazing, we haven't found any actual life. But you see the bigger problem, right? It doesn't actually solve how life started, it just moves the crime scene to another planet.
And that brings us to the theory where most of the scientific boots are on the ground, spontaneous origin. The technical term is abiogenesis. This is the idea that life didn't arrive and it wasn't created in a single moment, but that it gradually evolved from non-living matter through a long series of chemical steps. The driving force here would have been a kind of natural selection, but for molecules, favoring the ones that were more stable and could build bigger and better things.
Okay, so if we're going to take this spontaneous origin theory seriously, we have to reconstruct the primeval crime scene. What did Earth actually look like billions of years ago before a single cell existed?
Right, so forget everything you know about our planet. Early Earth was a truly alien world. I mean, we're talking about a surface that was basically an ocean of molten rock, constantly getting slammed by asteroids and comets left over from the solar system's formation. The atmosphere was this thick, choking blanket of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and water vapor. But, and this is absolutely crucial, there was almost no oxygen. This oxygen-free environment is what scientists call a reducing atmosphere. And you can think of it like a perfect chemical construction zone. It was full of hydrogen and other compounds that are fantastic for building bigger, more complex molecules. The lack of oxygen was the key. Oxygen is like a demolition crew. It loves to react with and tear apart organic molecules. So in that early oxygen-poor world, the building blocks of life could form and actually stick around without being instantly destroyed.
And this idea, well, it led to a huge breakthrough moment in the investigation. Back in 1953, 2 scientists, Miller and Urey, decided to create a mini version of this primeval crime scene in their lab. They mixed together the gases they thought were in the early atmosphere, added some water for an ocean, and then zapped the whole thing with sparks to act like lightning. And the result was stunning. They had created amino acids, the literal building blocks of proteins. It was a massive clue.
So this is huge, right? We've got a plausible crime scene, and we know the basic ingredients could pop up naturally. But now the mystery gets even deeper. Our detectives are now locked in a fierce debate over the next critical step. What was the first molecule that could actually copy itself and pass on information? What was that first tiny spark of life? And it all boils down to this classic chicken and egg problem. See, to build anything in a cell, you need instructions. That's what DNA and RNA do. But you also need machines, proteins called enzymes, to read those instructions and actually do the building. So which one could have possibly come first? You can't have one without the other. Or can you?
This puzzle splits the scientific detectives into two main camps. First, you have the RNA world hypothesis. This idea got a huge boost when we discovered ribozymes. These are special RNA molecules that can do two jobs at once. They can store information, like DNA, and they can act like a protein machine to build stuff. It's a possible solution to the whole chicken and egg thing. But the protein world camp pushes back. They argue that RNA building blocks are way too complex to have just formed on their own, and that without simple proteins to do the work first, nothing could have ever gotten started.
So to try and solve this standoff, a third idea has popped up, a pre-RNA world. This theory suggests that maybe the very first self-replicating molecule wasn't RNA or a protein. Maybe it was something much, much simpler, like a molecule called PNA. This simpler system could have kick-started the whole process and then later passed the job on to the more advanced RNA and proteins that we see today.
All right, so after looking at all this evidence, where are we? Well, we've got some really strong suspects, we've got a reconstructed crime scene, and we've got some fierce debates over how it all went down. But the case itself, it is definitely still open. And to make it even more challenging, our detectives can't even agree on the exact location of the crime. Was it in a warm little pond, like Darwin imagined? Or did life start in the super hot, chemical-rich waters of deep-sea hydrothermal vents? Some think it was deep inside the Earth's crust, or maybe even under a thick sheet of ice. We just don't know.
So, look, while we don't have that final whodunit answer, we are far from empty-handed. What we have are multiple, plausible, and this is the most important part, testable hypotheses. The investigation is moving forward every day, pushing the limits of what we know. It is, without a doubt, one of the greatest detective stories science has ever pursued.
And all of this leaves us with one final, kind of mind-blowing thought to chew on. As we keep searching for answers here, and as we look for signs of life on other planets, you have to wonder, if the conditions are right, is life just something that chemistry does? If it happened once, here, could it happen again out there? The investigation continues.